serious?
Oh my god, what the fuck is this? Oh my god! What the fuck is wrong with you?
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
What? 2 rant videos in a row, I hear you saying? Well, what can I say? I love spoiling my fans. Now, before I begin, I want to begin by explaining the context behind this. I was scrolling through some episodes of Death Battle not too long ago, and I couldn't help but to notice the view count, and I got curious. What is the lowest rated Death Battle? And while I was scrolling through the different episodes, I came across Makoto Misaka vs. Killua, which had an abysmal view count, so I decided to do some research, and I found the lowest rated death battles. And the 2 lowest rated death battles, in terms of view count at least, seems to be Kool-Aid Man versus Macho Man Randy Savage, and Makoto Misaka versus Killua. Now, while I will address Kool-Aid Man versus Macho Man Randy Savage a little bit, since that's mostly a joke death battle and not really worth taking seriously, I do want to focus mostly on Killua versus Misaka, because many of you know that I've mentioned this death battle before in the past, and how it would be a disaster if they did it. And, shock of all shock, I end up being right again. Everything I ever ended up saying about this matchup ended up being true. And, like I've talked about before in previous videos, how many times do I have to be right before Death Battle and its fans just think to themselves to just listen to what I have to say and hear me out? Am I always right? No, of course not, but I'm right more times than not. And that's what really matters at the end of the day. If somebody is right 9 times out of 10, what does it matter about the 1 time out of 10 in which that they're wrong? But let's get into it. And like I said, I don't know if this is going to be a super hard rant. I've been a little bit soft lately. We'll see how it goes. But yeah. In this, we're going to rant about the lowest rated death battles, and it's not pretty. Now, I might hear some of you say to yourself, well, wait, 1.7 million views, 1.3 million views, that doesn't sound too bad, right? And while if you were some smaller channel that only had like 30,000 views or something like that, sure, that would be impressive. But what we have to understand is this would only be impressive back when the highest viewed YouTube channel was Fred at a little over 1 million views. When you're a large channel like Death Battle with at least 5 million plus viewers, that's actually abysmal. For those who don't know this, when you're a YouTuber, if your view count is lower than your sub count, that's actually not good. That's actually a sign that either that video sucks or your channel sucks. A perfect example of what I'm talking about is 2 YouTubers, Queen Karma and Wrestling Otaku. They have a lot of subscribers, well, sort of. They have at least subscribers in the thousands. But even though they have subscribers in the thousands, their videos get the same amount of views as my videos, and I don't even have 100 subscribers yet. Hell, even back when I was on my old channel and I had around 2,000 subscribers, most of my videos, not all of them, but most of the ones that were actually related to what people cared about, would get like a few thousand views. Some even got like 20,000 views, 50,000 views. I was exceeding my sub count, and that's really what matters at the end of the day. So, while these numbers may seem impressive, if we look at this from the perspective of what if Death Battle was a TV show, for example, and we compared this to TV ratings? This is actually very, very bad, like, hilariously bad, because, for example, these are the same amount of views that fucking WWE pulls in. Like, on average, WWE pulls anywhere in between 1 million to 2 million views. And 2 million viewers is only really on a good day or the Raw after Mania. WWE has been bleeding viewers for years. To put into perspective, back when wrestling was at its peak, there was a combined total of 10 million people watching wrestling, and now WWE can barely even crack 2 million viewers, and obviously that's not good. Now, when we look at these episodes of Death Battle, so we got Makoto Misaka versus Killua. God-awful matchup, real quick, everything I said it would be. Hilarious stomp matchup, and a crappy mirror matchup that I've said this time and time again, Death Battle and Death Battle fans. Stop with the motherfucking elemental mirror matchups. I am so sick and tired of having to explain this shit to you. Just because two characters have the same fucking power doesn't make it a good matchup. Especially when you consider that even though, yes, Makoto Misaka's thing is lightning and electricity, Makoto has more fucking powers than that. And as does Killua. So to set this up as, oh, we'll have Makoto Misaka and Killua fight each other because they both use electricity is fucking stupid. I don't know how many years I've been trying to explain this, but it's getting fucking old. Enough is enough. Is this not the ultimate fucking example of what I've been talking about these garbage mirror matchups that offer fucking nothing? When there is a mirror matchup of a same elemental typing like ice, fire, electricity, unless there is a vast power gap between the two characters, which, believe me, there is here. Makoto Misaka is so much more powerful than Killua, it's not even fucking fair. It's almost kind of despicable what they did to poor Killua, because what the fuck did Killua do to deserve this level of disrespectful ass beating? All you DBZ fans, you have no right to complain, because not a single character from DBZ got done this dirty. Not Goku, not Vegeta, not Boo, not even fucking Bardock got done this dirty. What happened to Killua is honestly a fucking shame, if you ask me, and Death Battle should really be ashamed of themselves. And on a slightly unrelated note, what is up with Death Battle and child abuse and killing children in gruesome ways? First they do it to Red, now they do it to Killua. Does Death Battle just hate children or something like that? But I digress. When you have a vast power gap like this, when you don't have a vast power gap like this, you know what you end up with? You end up with a stalemate. That's what you get. Every single one of these matchups ends the exact same fucking way. It doesn't matter which one it is. Gaara versus Toph, Zuko versus Todoroki, Sub-Zero versus Glacius, Thor versus Raiden, Pikachu versus Blanca. It's all the same fucking shit. Every time Death Battle does a matchup like this, it ends up being one of the worst of the worst. Now, we can debate whether or not Makoto Misaka vs. Killua is one of the worst death battles of all time. We could even argue if it's the worst death battle of this type of death battle, because there are still matchups like Ace versus Natsu that are still high up in that regards. So that's a potential discussion for another day. But this also goes along with what I was talking about. I have mentioned before in previous videos, in previous live streams, if they ever did Killua versus Misaka, I said that it would bomb, and I was right. When this death battle first dropped, and I have the evidence here to prove it, it only got around 800k views. And that was 3 weeks after it dropped, and that was when the episode was brand new. A year or two later, it only has 1.7 million views. And to put into perspective just how bad it is, just how bad that number is, Red vs. Blue has 2 million views. The rematch of Link vs. Cloud, which surprisingly not a lot of people watched or cared about, had 2.9 million viewers. The John Wick episode, 4 million viewers, more than 3 times as much as this death battle. Even Rainbow Dash versus Starscream. I shit you the fuck not. Rainbow Dash versus Starscream has 10 million views. That is fucking embarrassing. The only death battle that is rated lower than this one, the only one, is Macho Man versus Kool-Aid Man, which is another death battle that I said if Death Battle did it, nobody would take it seriously and it would bomb. And even as far as joke death battles go, that episode was fucking pathetic. Nobody watched it, nobody cared about it. And again, to put into perspective of just how bad that one goes, even among joke death battles, once again, Rainbow Dash vs. Starscream, 10 million views. Pinkie Pie vs. Deadpool, if I remember correctly, had 4 million views. Even Rebecca Black vs. Justin Bieber had more views. Hell, McGruff vs. Smokey the Bear, 2.6 million views. And that is also one of the lowest rated death battles in history. Are you comprehending just how pathetic this is? And what pisses me off about this is, like I've said before, Death Battle wants to get as many views and subscribers as possible. They like to attract fan bases, and they like to do series that have huge viewers. So I fear that Death Battle is going to look at this Death Battle and they're going to think to themselves, well, this didn't really get a whole lot of views, so we're never going to do Hunter x Hunter ever again, and we're never going to do a certain magical index ever again. And I think that's very unfair to both universes, because make no mistake about it, even though there was some shitwit on the Death Battle wiki that tried to say that both of these universes are not popular, that couldn't be further from the truth. Hunter x Hunter and a certain magical index are hugely popular in both Japan and the West. So there's no reason for this death battle to have flopped. Even the Deku Asta death battle, which was boring, forgettable, trite, had more views than this. So I really don't understand, and again, it sucks for both these anime that this is the treatment that they get. And it goes without saying that the fight itself was crap, because this matchup gives Death Battle nothing to work with. And again, I don't understand why Death Battle chose to do this. Why did you choose? If you knew that this matchup was such a curb stomp Death Battle, why did you do it? Why didn't you cancel it and do something else? Especially because I've said this before and I'll say it again. You had a perfectly good opponent lined up for Misaka in the form of Rin Tosaka. Why didn't you just do that? Even if it would have pissed me off because I want to do that matchup for my show, Blood Royale, why didn't you do that? Again, I've said this before, I will say it again, Death Battle. Fucking hire me. Just hire me, and I promise you, I will get you nothing but the best matchups possible. I understand that this episode in particular came out during the dark days of Death Battle, you know, the Rooster Teeth days, back when I was being constantly harassed by those guys, and they were practically forcing Death Battle at gunpoint to make episodes for the expressed purpose of promoting their shitty TV shows. Although, interestingly enough, their Red vs. Blue episode has 2 million views, and even Yang vs. Tifa has like 7 million views, and those were just glorified advertisements for Rooster Teeth properties. But even with that being said, This, I highly doubt, was something that Rooster Teeth was telling Death Battle to do. So this was most likely a combination fault of the Death Battle fans, because they've been suggesting this crap for years, and Death Battle being irresponsible and not understanding the value of the word no. And this is what I find frustrating about Death Battle. I know they have the ability to say no. I've seen them do it before. I remember when they did a Q&A back when they did Goku vs. Superman 2. And a fan asked them if they would ever do Vegeta versus Zod, and Death Battle straight up said, no, we are not going to do that matchup because we don't want DBZ fans to be able to say, well, hypothetically, if Vegeta was able to beat Zod, then they would be coming telling us, well, Vegeta beat Zod, so why can't Goku beat Superman? And they said they weren't going to tolerate that. So I know Death Battle is capable of saying no, I just don't understand why they don't do it. They seldom ever do it, and it's kind of frustrating. And some of you might be asking, why is this a big deal? Why does Death Battle's view count matter, or why waste any time talking about this? Well, other than needing content and finding other things to talk about when it comes to Death Battle, instead of just repeating the same thing over and over and over again, here's why it matters. I've mentioned this before in previous videos that Death Battle, their view count matters to them. Because not only does their view count determine their revenue, but also they care because they know that the higher views they get, the more better their show is going to be received, the more sponsors they can get, the more fans they can get, so on and so forth. And they also want to regularly be in the trending chart on YouTube. That's just how it is. So it's not just me caring about this, Death Battle cares about this too. And another reason why I think this matters is, look at it this way. Misaka vs. Killua is one of the lowest rated Death Battles of all time. And this was the first time we ever got to see a certain magical index and Hunter x Hunter on the show. Well, what I fear could be the case is this may be the last time we ever see either of these universes show up on Death Battle, because Death Battle might look at this episode and think, well, this wasn't a very highly viewed episode, none of the fans really got angry at us, there's not really a lot of debunkings out there. I think I came across one debunking. And even then, it wasn't even really a debunking, it was just more so somebody talking about how unfair the matchup was. Which it was a very unfair matchup. Honestly, Death Battle, you're wrong for what you did to Killua. Killua did nothing to deserve this. Shame on you. But I digress. I fear that Death Battle will say to themselves, you know what? Fuck a certain magical index, fuck Hunter x Hunter. Why are we gonna do these characters if they're not gonna pull in views? We need to pull in views. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to pay the electric bill. So, what are they going to do? They're going to go stick to old reliable, like Naruto, or the Star Wars fandom, or DBZ, DC, Marvel. They're going to stick to the old reliables. They're going to stick to the episodes that get them views. And to put into perspective how bad some of these view counts are, the highest rated episode of Death Battle is Deathstroke vs. Deadpool at 44 million views. Think about that. 44 million views. And this episode has a 1.7. Okay? That is WWE ratings right there. That is absolutely fucking pathetic. And at least in terms of viewership, this is one of the worst of the worst. Even other of the all-time worst Death Battles, even Madara vs. Aizen had 5 million views. Madara vs. Aizen, it pulled in ratings. Yeah, it's a shitty episode, probably one of the worst episodes we've ever seen, but it got views. Starscream vs. Rainbow Dash, again, 10 million viewers. Yang vs. Tifa, 7 million viewers. Even Goku vs. Superman, all 3 times pulls in ridiculous amounts of views. So if even the all-time worst episodes can rake in views, then what does that say about this? This is what I talk about when I say forgettable episodes of Death Battle that people are going to watch once and then immediately forget about it. In fact, how many of you even remember that this even happened? Now, when I first heard about this matchup, I was pissed off about it. It was one of the first matchups I watched after I returned from my hiatus, and even then, I still almost immediately forgot about it. That's still sad. And this is what I talk about when I talk about boring, forgettable matchups, which is likely going to be the fate of Miles Morales versus Deku. And, like I said, for those of you that think that this doesn't matter, views absolutely do matter. Think of it this way. Imagine if Death Battle was a TV show. If Death Battle was pulling in really bad ratings, like on average, Death Battle gets anywhere between like 3 million to 5 million viewers, right? Sometimes even more. So if you're regularly pulling high levels of viewership and then all of a sudden your views go in the toilet, you could potentially lose your TV deal. Now sure, Death Battle isn't a TV show, it's an internet show, but ratings matter to internet shows just as much as they matter to TV shows. If series like Sonic for Hire didn't get vast amounts of viewership, do you think that that would have gone on as long as it did? Probably not. So this does matter. And if you do like me talking about things like the view count of Death Battle, let me know. I'll happily cover other low-rated episodes of Death Battle. And really, I wanted to use this as an opportunity to talk about Misaka versus Killua, because I missed out on that Death Battle. I was on my forced hiatus when that one came out, so I totally missed out on that one. I'm not going to be able to get to make a prediction on it or anything, and I've already seen the episode, but I will definitely at least review it at some point, and I just really wanted an excuse to talk about this Death Battle. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys around next time.